Straight all day.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves me, you, him, and her to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. I wrote a book on the subject. You're listening to the masterclass that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic: we are not victims. Now, I'm making this topic specifically regarding the race riots, relations that have been going on in we're not even going to call them all riots. There have been some riots, there's been some vandalism, but there's been protesting, there's been a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation happening in the United States since late May 2020 over what happened with the George Floyd situation and with the police there. And as of this recording, this is going to come out after several weeks after I actually recorded it, but as of this recording, there hasn't been anything changed from the situation. We know that one police officer has been charged and other three have not yet been charged, and we're just waiting for the judicial system to do what the judicial system is designed to do, which is to analyze what happened, make its proper decision as to what should happen moving forward, and then people are going to respond to that. So we'll see how that goes. So I don't usually, as you know, I usually don't talk political, or I will talk about politics from the angle that I see it. I don't follow politics, so I don't go deep into politics here on this show. I will talk about things that are race related if I believe it is related to a topic that I'm talking about. I'll talk about anything that is related to something that I'm talking about. But y'all know, if you listen to the show often enough, what Work on Your Game, the whole philosophy, is about. And if that happens to go into race, if it happens to go into business, if it happens to go into politics, then so damn be it. So today we're talking about it because it is happening. I am black. This is something that a whole lot of people are interested in. And this topic right here, even though I'm not putting it out like right after these things have happened, this one's going to come out a little bit later. I think it still applies no matter when this comes out, this topic of us not being victims. And I made this topic specifically for black people living in the United States. But I want everyone who is a listener of this show to continue listening, even though I'm not targeting you specifically with the topic. And things that I've discussed on this topic already. You heard the special episode where I talked about George Floyd and race relations in America. I want to make sure that I've addressed this. And this topic here, even though I had in mind black Americans when I recorded it, this can be for anyone listening who feels like the system, quote, the system, close quote, whatever you think the system is, if you feel like the system is against you and is somehow, some way blocking you from being your greatest self, then this is for you. Again, the topic: we are not victims. Point number one: power, ladies and gentlemen. I think everybody who's listening to this on some level wants power. Let me tell you something about power that I know. Power does not accrue to victims. You cannot become powerful if you're a victim. Just a couple days ago, masterclass number 1521, I talked about how we empower ourselves in life. I've talked about power in probably 30 episodes of this show, so I'm not going to tell you all of them, but I'll tell you a few. Masterclass number 1492, the power of being in the room. That's all about showing up. Masterclass number 1436, keep the power in your own hands. Masterclass number 1330, how to overpower the circumstances of life. Masterclass number 1259, self-determinism, your measure of personal power. Are you all noticing a theme here? Masterclass number 1244, proximity is power. Masterclass 1191, your power, do not give it all away. Number 1151, your greatest power is your willingness to walk away. Number 1069, the power of human will. Number 946, the power of mind and spirit over matter. Masterclass number 860, the power of repetition. Number 824, understanding power, when you have it and when you don't have it. Number 717, stop giving all your power away. Number 699, the life-changing power of decision. I could go on and on, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to. But as you can see, this whole subject of power is not a new thing. All right, so anyone here who thinks this is new, this ain't new. Maybe you're new, but this ain't new. All right, no one can get into power in life by being a victim. All right, it does not work that way. Let me give you a definition of power so that we're on the same page And so you know why I talk about this subject as often as I do. Definition of power is the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or a quality. In other words, power is your ability to do or be or think or say what the hell you want to do, think, be, or say. That's what power is, okay? I think everybody wants that. Power does not mean you are lording over other people, or you can tell somebody else what to do, or you can move other people to action when you want to. Those can be parts of power, but you don't need to be able to do any of those to have power over your own life. Everyone wants to have power at least over themselves, if nothing else. Can we agree? Now let's get a definition of victim. Victim is defined as a person harmed or injured as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action. So we could also say someone who is killed. Now, if you get killed, you are a victim because you're dead. Okay, you're not around to do anything else. You're not around to say anything for yourself. So anything short of being killed, a person who is harmed or injured or whatever, something affects you as a result of a crime or an accident or any event or action. I don't even know why they put crime or accident in there. Any event or action that affects you in some way, that makes that person a victim if you can't do anything about it. That's the way that I'm going to put it. A victim is a person who has something happen in their lives, happen to them or for them, that they cannot control. And usually when they're a victim, we'll say somebody is fortunate when it is a good thing. When it's a bad thing, we call them a victim. Something that they don't control, can't do anything about, but it is affecting their lives in some way. That's what a victim is. Understand, you cannot be a victim and you cannot be a victim and powerful at the same time. You got to pick one. You cannot be a victim and be powerful at the same time. You have to pick one. I did a master class. I'll tell you what number it was. It was master class number 316, my Virtual Mentors Volume 3. It was on a man by the name of Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. Now 50 Cent, everybody knows, he got shot 9 times before his debut album was set to be released. Now he came as close to being killed as he came as close to being a victim who couldn't change the story as you could possibly come. And he came back from that and made a success out of his career and made a success out of his life. I think everyone can agree. Now, 50 Cent, if anyone could have called themselves a victim for the rest of their lives, it was him. Now, anyone who's listening to me right now, who you weren't shot 9 times, all right, if he couldn't look at himself as a victim, how could you possibly look at yourself as a victim? Now, I understand something may have happened to someone else. Something may have happened that you think could possibly happen to you. You may think that it's happening to a whole lot of people all the time. You may think it is systematic what is happening to other people who may share similar qualities with you. Do you feel like a victim? Do you feel like you're a victim because of that? Do you feel like because other people were victims that now you are also by default a victim? And listen, let me be 100% clear. I'm not here to argue with you whether you should be a victim or not. I'm not here to tell you whether you are a victim or not. I'm telling you that and when I say we, I'm talking about people who want to be or wish to maintain a position of power over their own lives. We are not victims. If you want to be a victim, it is your right. It's your right to be who you want to be in life. Or you are actually, we could put these definitions together. You are claiming the power to be a victim. Or you are allowed to be who you want to be. If you want to be a victim, you can be a victim, but you cannot have power and be a victim at the same time. So here's what you need to understand. If the situation of your life is a result of an event or action which you believe you do not have control over, that means you don't have power. Because people who have power have control. People who have power do what they want to do. People who have power, even when they are faced with a circumstance that they don't want to be in, they notice that, they recognize it, and then they say to themselves, okay, what do I need to do? What actions can I take? How can I change my thinking so that I get some control over this situation? That's what powerful people do. They always are looking for, how do I get control over the situation that I'm in and the circumstances that I'm dealing with? That's what powerful people do. Victims don't do that. Victims get into a situation, they have things happen, and instead of asking themselves, how can I get control? They blame the situation and say, well, this is why I don't have control, because the situation is the situation. This is what victims do. So let me ask you a question, and it's a question that you need to be asking yourself as you're listening to me right now. Which one are you? Are you powerful or are you a victim? And I want you to understand, as I've already laid out clearly here, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot be both. Which one are you? Are you powerful or are you a victim? Are you looking for ways to control a circumstance, or are you looking for excuses to be controlled by a circumstance? I can't answer for you, but you must answer through your own actions in life. Life will control victims. Powerful people control life. Even though I've already told you, 99% of what occurs in your life, you don't have control over. You cannot predict. And then when it happens, you can't do anything about it. 99% of your life, you couldn't control where you were born. You couldn't control who your parents are. You can't control the city that you grew up in. Oftentimes, 99% of the things that happen in life, you can't control the weather. You can't control any of the other human beings walking this planet. There's 8 billion of them. You can't control any of them. You only get 1% control over what happens in your life. That 1% is the difference between being powerful and being a victim. And you got to choose what you do with that 1%. Point number 2. Today's topic is we are not victims. And again, I targeted this specifically at the African American community. And in point number 2, I will explain exactly why that is. Our leaders, we're on point number 2 now. Our leaders in our communities as black folks, American blacks, because I said this once in a post, and a guy from Africa, black guy from Africa said, well, Dre, you should make clear you're talking to American blacks, because black people over here, we don't got these problems that you're talking about. So I got to make sure I'm saying American blacks. Our leaders in America as black folks are not leaders. You heard me correctly. The leaders and this is specifically for those of you who are, and yes, I'm talking to the American blacks, but for those of you who are not black, those of you who are white, those of you who are Latin, or not, if you're not black or brown, white people, Asian people, Europeans who have immigrated to America, maybe Europeans who are living in Europe, anyone who is not black or brown who's listening to me right now, I want you to understand this point right here. All right, this is why I want you to listen, even though this was not targeted at you. If you look at what we are doing, black people, in our society, our community, I want you to understand that the people that you think are our leaders, they are not our leaders. They do not speak for us. They may perpetuate that they speak for us. There may be some people who think they speak for us, and because they have a large platform, you may think, oh, well, that person must be representative of what the black community thinks. That is false. That is not true. And I'm going to name some names here today. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the people that you think are our leaders because they are popular or because they're famous or because they talk a lot, they are not our leaders. And I'm going to tell you the specific reason why these people are not our leaders. It's not just because I don't like them or I'm hating on them or none of that, because actually I admire their accomplishments. So that is part of why they're not leaders. And check what I'm about to explain to you. And if I'm wrong on this, somebody let me know. Knowing what I know about making things happen in life and not waiting for things to happen, taking initiative, about creating success, about dealing with the things that happen in life, because everybody has things happen in their lives, and still fighting through it and being mentally tough enough to do so, to make it to success. Knowing what I know about that, I wrote an entire book about it. I read, actually, several of my books are about it. Actually, honestly, all of my books are about it. My book, Work on Your Game, is specifically about that. Knowing what I know, here's one thing I can guarantee you 100%, and no one can tell me I'm wrong on this one. You do not get to fight through the challenges and circumstances of life by being a victim. It's impossible. People who see themselves as victims do not get to positions of power in life. They do not get to success. They do not get to the point of being a leader or being prominent or having people look to them for inspiration or motivation or as an example of how they can be successful. You do not become a role model to other people through looking at yourself as a victim. All that being said, yes, shit happens in life, but as long as you're allowed to talk about that shit, you will always be able to gather yourself and see what you can do about it, how you can respond to it. Instead of getting emotional and reacting like a victim, you can respond like a powerful person and you can make things happen in your life. That's the only way you can reach the heights of success, or even begin to approach the heights of success in life. Excuse me, took a drink there. Now, let's talk about some of the people who are looked at as our leaders in our communities, our pseudo leaders. They're not actual leaders, but they get air quotes leaders. The Charlemagne the God from the Breakfast Club. Some of y'all don't even know who he is, but if you do know who he is, then you know who I'm talking about. Charlemagne is looked at as a leader in our community because he has a huge platform. He literally has a talk show on the radio or wherever they broadcast. The Breakfast Club comes out every single day. They do a lot of interviews. Prominent people from outside of our culture, when they want to get into our culture, or at least they want to spread their message within our culture, they go on the Breakfast Club. That is the place to go. If you want to get seen by the black community, you go on the Breakfast Club. Joe Biden went on the Breakfast Club. Rush Limbaugh on the Breakfast Club. If Donald Trump wasn't so reviled by the by many in the African American community, not all of them, but by many, he would go on the Breakfast Club. Anyone who is somebody who wants to reach to the African American zeitgeist is going on the Breakfast Club, at least as of this recording, because they are the most popular show in the culture. And Charlemagne is the most popular person of the three hosts of that show. Now, I like Charlemagne. I think he is smart. I think he's witty. I think he's funny at times. I think he's a pretty articulate guy. And those things cause people to follow him and listen to him. But he is not one of our leaders, even though he may be looked at as one. Another person I'm going to mention here today is three specific people we're going to talk about. Jemele Hill. Now, Jemele, for those of you who don't know who she is, she was a sportscaster who worked her way up. I don't know exactly where she came from, but she worked her way up in ESPN. She started from the bottom, worked her way up over the years. She was on TV. She was on several shows. You would see her all the time. She was pretty much for a lot of times, the only black or brown female you would see on ESPN. There are a few of them who are on there, but she was the most prominent. She was the one with the biggest voice. She was the one who actually was empowered to share her opinions on things sports related, and she was moving up. She had even gotten to the point where she was co-hosting the 6 p.m. Sports Center, which is a huge coveted spot because it's right in prime time on a huge network like ESPN. Jemele Hill was on the come up on the ESPN ladder. She was moving up pretty quickly. But then she decided at some point that she wanted to play the racial card on social media. So she got on Twitter one particular day, and she just started going off about racism and white supremacy. She went as far as to call Donald Trump a white supremacist and say anyone who doesn't believe Donald Trump's a white supremacist, then you're in the wrong. And she went scorched earth when it came to race in America when she said those things on social media. I don't know why she said it. I don't know what was her motivation. Maybe she was always feeling that. Maybe she was she just came in hot at that moment, that particular day. Who knows? But she did it. All right, and she stood on it, and she wanted to stay there. And eventually, it wasn't that long after she did that, she ended up losing her job at ESPN. Now, I think maybe she got bought out at ESPN, or maybe they fired her or whatever. I think she got bought out. I do believe she got some type of severance because she had a contract. So Jemele Hill doesn't work at ESPN anymore. She is, the last that I heard, she was basically doing her own independent thing. I've seen her on a few podcasts. I think she has her own podcast. Obviously, she's still on social media. She's very popular on social media because anything that is racially divisive, especially against Donald Trump, and especially in whatever way for the African American cause, quote unquote. We're calling it quote unquote not because there isn't a cause, but because what some people call the cause is not what all black people call the cause. So that's another thing. But Jemele Hill is super popular. Let's just put it that way. And I think Jemele Hill had to be doing something right. I was not a huge fan of her work. I didn't think there was too much depth to the things that she was saying. I think it was very surface level, which works for a certain demographic of people, which we will call the masses. It worked for them, and that's why Jemele Hill became more popular. So she obviously understood the game, and she was playing it well. But then she burned her own bridge by saying the things she was saying that ended up out from ESPN. And ESPN was a bigger platform than anything that Jemele Hill herself has to this day. But again, she did what she wanted to do. I'm not saying that she was wrong for that. This is just what she did. And the third person we're going to talk about here today is Mr. LeBron James. Now, LeBron James, I know probably more about his background, and I definitely know more about his background than the other two people that I've talked about combined. LeBron, we know, was a child of a single teen parent growing up in lower class America in a black and brown community. Usually those kids don't end up successful. Usually those kids end up in the prison system, incarcerated, dead, or working a series of low-end jobs. But LeBron James became, I think, as of this recording, the best basketball player in the world until someone firmly unseats him. He's one of the top 5 players of all time. He's made a ton of money playing basketball. LeBron James has done very well for himself. I think we can say, despite the circumstances that he started at, from where he started to where he's gotten is a huge come up for LeBron James. Now, none of these three, Charlemagne, Jemele Hill, LeBron James, would have reached the heights that they have reached in their lives by looking at themselves as victims. Charlemagne is a radio guy. He's worked in, he's had several radio jobs. He's gotten fired from several radio jobs. He got the Breakfast Club job. Nobody quite knew. And Charlemagne was saying himself, I heard him say, nobody was really willing to take a chance on Charlemagne until the Breakfast Club called and said, hey, would you like to try this? And it might have been one of his last chances at success in the industry, and he made a success out of it. So Charlemagne All the times he got fired, if he had looked at himself as a victim, he wouldn't be where he is today with the level of prominence that he has if he had saw himself as a victim. Jemele Hill would not be in a position that she is today if, I don't know her background hardly at all, but I'm sure she's been through some shit. I'm sure she's had some challenges. I'm sure she's had some rough moments in her career on her way up, even to the ESPN point. She would not have gotten to where she was at ESPN if during any of the shit that she went through in her life, she looked at herself as a victim. LeBron James, again, we know more about LeBron's background. I know more about LeBron's background than any of the other two. The things that he came from, a single teenage mom, parent, growing up in the hood, moving from house to house. It was years where he was missing half the days of school. Like, most of the kids who have that background do not become successful at anything. They can't even get a $50,000 a year job, let alone become the biggest name in basketball. LeBron James, had he looked at himself as a victim in any of those situations, would he be LeBron James? I think everyone who's listening to this would say, hell no, he would not. So none of these three could have gotten to where they've gotten by looking at themselves as victims. Yet, here's the thing that was really fucking me up. That when LeBron James talks about racial things in America, and he tends to be an outspoken guy, we're going to talk about that in a minute, he often says things that will have his followers believing that LeBron sees himself as a victim. I remember when LeBron, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, I don't remember which year it was, the NBA Finals were taking place, and right before the finals, a news story came out that allegedly someone had spray painted the N-word on one of LeBron James's homes in Los Angeles. This is when LeBron was still playing for the Cleveland Cavaliers team, but he had a home in LA. And allegedly someone had spray painted the N-word on LeBron's house, and one of LeBron's, somebody who works at his house, found it, cleaned it up, and for whatever reason, who knows, wink wink, the story got out to the news outlet. Somehow somebody let the news know this. And LeBron could have just buried the story, but of course, they wanted to let the news know. Fine, you want the attention, fine. So the attention got put on LeBron, the N-word got put on your house, and LeBron, this is right before the NBA Finals. He's doing a press conference, and someone asks him about the N-word that was allegedly spray painted on his house. We never saw it, there were no photos, we just know what we were told. So we're just gonna assume he was telling the truth, okay? The N-word got spray painted on his house, he cleaned it up. And when he did the press conference and someone asked him about it, LeBron James' opening statement was this. He said, when I think about what happened at my house, I think about Emmett Till. Now, those of you who don't know who Emmett Till was, Emmett Till was a young kid who was lynched by some white men. This is way back before the civil rights movement, because Emmett had allegedly, while visiting the south of the United States, he was from Chicago, but while visiting some friends in the south, he had put his hands on a white woman, like in a sexual type of way. He was interested in the woman. This was the story that the woman told. We don't know. There's no video. Emmett never admitted it, at least as far as we know. But these white men came and found Emmett Till, tied him to the back of a truck, drove the truck while dragging Emmett Till on the back of the truck through the streets and through the woods, brutally mutilated his body and threw his body and tried to hide his body like in a lake or in some brush or something. And the mutilated body was found sometime later. That's what happened to Emmett Till. Now, Emmett Till's mother, when the funeral was held for young Emmett, she told the funeral directors, I want the body to be on display. Now, when a body gets mutilated the way Emmett Till's was, usually there's what they call a closed casket. They don't want anyone to see the body because it's not a good sight. Emmett Till's mother, because she wanted the world to know what she felt racism or racial tensions were doing to black people in America, she decided that she wanted her son's body on full display during the funeral. Now, that's who Emmett Till was, in case any of you did not know. LeBron James, when he got the N-word spray painted on his house, allegedly, the first thing he said was, when that happened to me, I start thinking of Emmett Till. This man drew a comparison between what happened to his house to a young man who was brutally murdered. And this was his opening statement when someone asked him about what happened at his house. And then he went on to say things like, no matter how successful you become, how much money you make, you still know that they look at you a certain way here in America. And when he said they, he was talking about certain white people. And when he said you, he was talking about black people. Now, listen, LeBron James is his own man. He can say whatever the hell he wants to say. All right, so I'm not here to say, LeBron, you said the wrong thing, or you should have said this, that, and the third. He can say whatever he wants. All right, if he wants to say fuck Dre Baldwin on Twitter, He can say that. Doesn't mean I won't respond, but he can say it. And the thing is this. LeBron has so many followers and fans. I don't know how many. Let's say he has 100 million fans. People who listen to him and want to hear what he has to say, and they look at what he does, and that influences them. We can all agree on that. We can agree that LeBron, in addition to being a great basketball player, he is an influencer. He has influence. So when he, as successful as he is, as famous as he is, as publicly known he is for his success and his achievements in life, a person at that stage, he is on a very high pedestal. When something happens to LeBron James and the first thing out of his mouth is drawing a parallel between himself and a victim, a real victim who did not have the power that LeBron James has. And then to say something like, no matter how successful you get, there's still this negative thing that's happening that's hanging over our heads, which is a victim statement. It is a victim-tainted statement. Oh, I'm this successful, but look at these terrible things that are happening. When he says something like that, again, he has the right to say whatever he wants, but because of the influence that he wields, there are a whole bunch of people who follow LeBron that when they heard him say that, that will cause them, that would influence them to also feel like victims. Because look, most of the people who are influenced by LeBron do not have LeBron's success. They don't have his achievements. They don't have the power that LeBron James has. Yet, this guy with all this power, instead of saying something like, you know what, that's fucked up, whoever put that on my house, and they're an idiot, and they shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, I am a person who has reached a status of prominence despite my background, despite where I come from, despite the odds that were set against me. I reached a high level of success. I'm about to play in the damn NBA Finals. And we're talking about some idiot who spray painted something on my house. Listen, this is the only statement I'm going to make about this. We are not going to harp on this. We're not going to keep talking about this. I want all the young people out there who follow me and who are influenced by me to understand we don't put our head down because somebody said a word or somebody said something negative about us. We are not victims. If somebody doesn't like me or they got something to say to me, they can come say it to my face instead of being a coward and spray painting it on my house. But forget it. Look at all the success that I've achieved. Look at all the people that I have impacted. Look what I'm about to do in my professional career, playing the NBA Finals again for the 7th, 8th year in a row. Let's talk about something more important. Are we not wasting our time on idiots who have dumb things that they want to say? People see me in the neighborhood all the time. They come talk to me if they want to say something. Let's move on and talk about moving ourselves forward, and moving this team forward, winning this championship, and moving culture forward instead of talking about some nonsense. He could have said that. Now, what's the difference between those two statements? In short, the difference is the one that LeBron actually made everyone who doesn't have LeBron's power feel like, damn, I must really be a victim. If this guy has all this power and he's a victim, then what the hell am I? That's what LeBron's statement did to some people who are impressionable based on his influence and based on their status. What my version of his statement would have done is what? It would have empowered people. It would have been LeBron empowering himself, saying, all right, yeah, that happened and it's fucked up and it's stupid, but we're not going to harp on it and we're not going to paint ourselves as victims just because somebody says something dumb. What the hell was a dude who has made who knows how much money from basketball, has so much success, all of these accolades? Why would he say something that makes people feel like he looks at himself as a victim just because somebody wrote something on his house? Even if you don't like that somebody wrote something on your house, who would like somebody writing something on their house? I don't think anybody would. Even if you don't like it, why would you empower that action, that ignorance, by saying something that makes you look and feel like a victim? Why would you frame yourself as a victim like that? Why would LeBron James do that? I couldn't understand it then, and I still couldn't understand it until I started really thinking out what we're talking about here today. But I'm going to explain why that happened in a moment. LeBron is another person, along with Charlemagne, and I don't see Jamel Hill's stuff, doesn't come up on my timeline as often. I don't follow any of these people, but some of this stuff gets to me. It finds its way to me through social media. But when something happens, when something happens to black people, especially a black person gets killed by either white people or a white police officer, we hear things from our prominent black, quote, leaders, close quote, like, oh, they're always doing this to us. They are killing us. We are being systematically oppressed. They're trying to wipe us out. You hear people throwing around these terms like white supremacy. You see these things. I don't care what color you are. You see prominent people of color throwing these terms out all the time. Do you not? And I'm just talking about 3 specific people because these are people who came to mind when I was thinking this out. But there are others. Here's the thing. If any of these people, let's just say these 3, Charlemagne, Jamel Hill, LeBron James, If any of them really looked at themselves as victims, as I said already, they would not be where they are in life. They would not have achieved what they have achieved if they really thought they were victims. Can you agree with that? So my question is, since there's no way LeBron, Jamel, and Charlamagne could actually believe that they are victims to get to where they are, yet they still preach victimhood to their audiences. Charlamagne, he had Rush Limbaugh on his show in early June 2020. This is why I included Charlamagne, because I listened to this interview. Rush Limbaugh, for those of you who don't know, he is a popular conservative voice. He's in the radio world. He's like you can kind of call him the Charlamagne of the conservative side. Rush Limbaugh, older, middle-aged, white guy. He was on The Breakfast Club right after the George Floyd situation happened in Minnesota, about a week after it happened. Rush Limbaugh comes on The Breakfast Club. And obviously, the Breakfast Club hosts they want to confront Rush, being that he's a prominent conservative voice. And they wanted to ask him, like, what are you, they wanted to talk about whatever was on their mind, the Breakfast Club guys. And Charlamagne starts throwing around these terms like systemic oppression and white supremacy and racism that America is built on. He's throwing around these terms. He throws around these terms all the time. Now, again, Charlamagne is a very articulate guy. He's a relatively smart guy. He's written a couple of books. He is very popular, and he's a witty guy at the same time. And when you put all of that together, you get a person who can be very influential to a certain demographic of people, especially people who are not as articulate as he is. They're not as witty as he is. They're maybe not as smart as he is. He can talk circles around people. Charlamagne's that type of guy who can talk circles around you if you let him. Now, Rush Limbaugh is not a guy you can talk circles around. But anyway, Charlamagne starts throwing around these terms that he's always throwing around on social media and on his radio show all the time that get amplified by all his fans. Anyway, Rush Limbaugh finally, as he's listening to this and being hit with question after question, and Charlamagne's throwing around these intangible terms here that nobody has ever clearly defined. And Rush Limbaugh says, Charlamagne, what do you want me to do? He says, Rush says, look, I have an audience of people who are of the conservative bend who will listen to me if I can bring them something that you think would help the African American community feel better about what's going on in America, about their station in this world and everything. What do you want me to do? What is the message that you want me to take from what this conversation that we're having right here? And this is what Charlamagne says. Charlamagne says, we need to destroy the system of white supremacy that America is built on. That was his statement. Now, some of you are listening to me right now, and when I said what Charlamagne just said, when I repeated Charlamagne's words, you nodded your head and said, yeah, that's right. We need to destroy the system of systemic oppression and white supremacy that America is built on. Now, let me ask you a question. Since you agree with what Charlamagne said, those of you who agree, and those of you who don't, I'm going to get to you in a moment. But those of you who agree, tell me, how do you actually do that? How does that actually happen? First of all, can you show me where this system of oppression and racism and white supremacy is at? Can you point it out? Can you show me the document? Can you show me the people? Can you tell me exactly where this is when you say this system of systemic oppression and white supremacy that America is built on? And then, since you probably can't, let me ask you, what are the steps to destroying it? You want to destroy the system that America is built on. Tell me, how do we do that? Can you lay out some steps? Can you lay out an action plan for how this actually happens? And I'm going to guess that you probably cannot, because even though these terms, white supremacy, systemic oppression, racism, all the whatever other terms you hear people like Charlamagne and LeBron and Jamel throw around, they sound great, and it gives African Americans a strong rallying cry. There is nothing tangible behind it. And this is why I can't get behind the message that these people throw out. And again, I like Charlamagne. I listen to The Breakfast Club, some of the interviews, not all of them, but some of them. I think LeBron James is the best basketball player. Jamel, I'm not a huge fan of her work, but I can respect her accomplishments. The position that she got to at ESPN is not an easy spot to get to. I've never seen a black woman get to the spot that she was at ESPN before she burned the bridge by throwing out the white supremacy thing on social media. And she doubled down on it after that. Why she did that, again, her choice. So I'm not hating on any of these people. I don't dislike any of them. I don't want to see any of them fail. I want them all to thrive and succeed. But I do not understand where there's nothing tangible about the terms that they throw out all the time. They can't, if you gave them a pen and pad and said, write down exactly what we need to do to destroy these things, they could not answer the question. But they are preaching victimhood to their audiences. A black person saying that white supremacy is a problem, or that racism is a problem, or that systemic oppression is a problem. If you are black in America and you think these three things are a problem, here is my question to you. What is your plan to do something about it? If you cannot answer that question, so if you agree to the first one, that these things are problems, but you can't answer the question when I say, what do you do about it? Then you are by definition a victim. You are a victim of racism. You are a victim of systemic oppression. You are a victim of white supremacy because you can't do anything about them. You think they're a problem as a black person in America, yet you have no plan and no strategy to do anything about it. You are by definition a victim. This is why back in 2016, I said I understand why Mr. Colin Kaepernick is taking a knee on the field. I understand why he's doing it, because he wants to draw attention to this cause. But there's a problem with what he's doing, is that he has no strategy, he has no plan, and he proved to not be a leader. Anybody heard from Colin Kaepernick lately? Anybody? I haven't heard from him. I mean, he started this, right? When the image of Derek Chauvin with a knee on George Floyd's neck came out, there was a meme with Colin Kaepernick right next to him. And they said, oh, well, this is why Colin Kaepernick took a knee. See, he's the one who started. He was right. Right about what? What was he right about? What did he prove? What result did Colin Kaepernick produce? I can't answer any of those questions. Can you? If somebody can answer one of those questions, and you can lay out for me point by point what he achieved, what his desired outcome was, and what he was quote unquote right about, please tell me. Because I thought the purpose of him taking a knee was to stop systemic oppression, racism, and white supremacy. I thought he was trying to stop it. I thought that's why he took a knee. Did he stop it? I mean, it's 4 years later, we're still talking about it. So to me, that's a fail. But if anybody sees it differently, please let me know. And again, I'm not hating on it. I wish Colin Kaepernick was still in the NFL. I wish he hadn't burned the bridge of his own career by doing that and then doubling down on it and then not having anywhere to go. He didn't have an answer, so when he got questioned on it and he realized that he was in over his head, he just went mute. Has anybody heard from Colin Kaepernick? Again, I ask again. I'm recording this in early June, so if he's spoken since then I guess we can say yeah. But as of this point, I haven't heard anything from that man. I thought he was the one who started this. So when everybody else picked up his lead and started following what he started, where's he at? This is what a leader does. You start something, people follow you, then you tell them, okay, this is what we're doing, here's where we're going, this is what you do this, you do that, you go over there. That's what a leader does. What did Colin Kaepernick do? He got quiet. Now, if I'm wrong on this, somebody let me know. Now, to wrap up point number 2 here, I was trying to figure out, why do successful people who couldn't be victims to become successful preach victimhood? Why would they do this? It makes no sense. It is incongruent for a successful, powerful person to preach victimhood. It makes no sense. How? Why? I couldn't get it, but I figured it out. Let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic is we are not victims. Point number 3, you know why LeBron James and Charlamagne and Jamel preach victimhood? You know why Colin Kaepernick was preaching victimhood, even though he was one of only 30 starting quarterbacks in the NFL? You know that's the most prominent position in all of sports, is a starting quarterback on a football team. Why were they preaching victimhood even though they weren't victims? Because they're salespeople. They're telling their audience what their audience wants to hear. Now, some people say Donald Trump is racist. They say Donald Trump says racist things. He says things that have racial undertones. He blows the dog whistle, so to speak. He's a white supremacist. He says things that appeal to white supremacists and racists. And here's the thing that I always said about Donald Trump. I've said this many times. If you listen to the show, you know I've said it. This is not new. I said Donald Trump's just a salesperson. He knows who his base is. He knows that his base are people who may feel or they may even be racists, oppressors, or white supremacists, whatever it is that means. There are people in his audience who may be those things. And Donald Trump knows this. Therefore, when he says what he says things that he knows will appeal to that base of people. Why does he say things that appeal to that base of people? Because he knows that base of people will vote for him and they will not vote for any of the other guys. That's why he does it. Because it will keep him in office, it will keep him in power, it will keep him prominent, and it will keep the registers ringing, metaphorically speaking, even though he's technically not selling a product or a service. But you get what I'm saying. He's selling himself. He says things that sound racist because he is trying to appeal to people who may be racist. I personally do not think Donald Trump is racist. I'll go on the record and say I don't think Donald Trump's racist. I do not think he's a white supremacist. I do not think he is an oppressor. I don't think any of those things about Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump, if we're going to call him one thing, Donald Trump is a salesperson. That's who he is. All right, that's how we know who he was before he even got into politics. The guy's a salesman. He knows how to make his name prominent, put it in front of your face, and make you talk about him. That's what he does. That's the thing that Donald Trump does, right? He was 70-something years old when he ran for president. If he was racist, we would have known him before that. Now, you may be pointing out where he had some kind of discrimination suits and things like that in his apartment buildings. Well, a lot of people got those. I don't think that makes him racist. I think he was trying to protect his assets, and if he thought discriminating against people would protect his asset, then he would do it. Doesn't make him racist. He might have done something that is racist, but that doesn't make him a racist. But some of y'all got some ideas that are racist. You might not say them out loud. That don't make you a racist. You might just have some racist ideas. But again, this ain't about defending Donald Trump, and even if you think I am, I don't give a fuck. This is my show. Anyway, the point is this. LeBron James, Charlamagne, Jemele Hill, the reason why they preach victimhood to their audiences is because their audiences want to feel like victims. Colin Kaepernick's audience are a bunch of people who wanted to feel like a victim. And here's the thing. You know why? Now here's the question. Why would LeBron James's fans, Dre, want to feel like victim? Why? Some of you who are really against everything that I've said so far here today, you're only listening just so you can get some ammo to come at me with. I get it. I hear you. I see you. Here's the thing. You're like, why would LeBron, Jemele, Charlamagne, whoever, why would they have an audience of people who want to be victims? You're telling me that I want to be a victim because I listen to LeBron? Oh, I listen to the Breakfast Club, so I want to be a victim. Is that what you're saying, Dre? Yes, that's what the fuck I'm saying. And why would you want to be a victim? Here's why you want to be a victim. Because if somebody solved your victimhood issue, you don't have anything else to complain about. Now, you are fully responsible for your outcomes. Now, you don't have anybody to blame. Now, you can't point the finger at the White House or at Donald Trump or at some white cop or at some systemic oppression that you can't point out or at the people who got Colin Kaepernick out of the NFL or out of some white person who's tweeting all lives matter when you tweet black lives matter. Now you don't have anybody to blame. Now you don't have anybody to point the finger at. Now you have nothing to complain about. Now you are 100% responsible for your outcomes. Now you got to do some work. Now you got to be disciplined. Now you got to be mentally tough. Now you got to actually achieve something. And if you don't, you have nobody to blame and no one to complain about. And you don't want to be in that situation. Therefore, you embrace being a victim because you will always have an excuse. This is why victimhood is so powerful. This is why LeBron James preaches victimhood, even though LeBron personally is not a victim. Because his audience loves victimhood. If he solved all of their problems, now they got to do the work that LeBron James did to become successful. And guess what? You know why there's only one LeBron James? Because everybody ain't willing to do what LeBron James did to become LeBron. You know why there's only one Charlamagne? Everybody don't want to do what Charlamagne had to do to become Charlamagne. You know why there was only one Jemele Hill at ESPN? Everybody don't want to do what Jemele had to do to become Jemele Hill. And they understand that. Therefore, instead of telling you, yo, this is what the fuck I had to do, stop being a bitch, stop whining, stop being a victim, stop blaming the president, stop blaming systemic oppression, stop talking about white supremacy, and do your fucking job and work on your fucking game and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. That's what they should be telling you. That's what I'll tell you. But instead of them telling you that, they tell you what you want to hear. They give you the pornography that you like. They give you victim porn. Victim porn is no matter what happens, you come up with a reason, an excuse to feel sorry for yourself. LeBron James, Jemele Hill, and Charlamagne are no different in this sense than Donald Trump. All they're doing is selling to their base. Some of you who don't like anything I'm saying here today, because you feel like I'm criticizing / hating on somebody that you like, you're like, how are you going to compare LeBron to Donald Trump? Well, I just explained it to you. All right, you didn't listen to the first 45 minutes of what I said today? This is what they're doing. They are selling to their base. They know that you want to be a victim, so they keep giving you victim shit. Donald Trump knows that there are people out there who want to be racist, so he keeps feeding them racist shit. Donald Trump ain't racist. Donald Trump's a salesperson. All he does is sell. Charlamagne is a salesperson. He's selling you on listening to him. Jemele Hill is selling you on listening to her. LeBron James is selling you on following him as the leader because he, quote unquote, speaks out, close quote, on social issues. And that's what a lot of people say, well, LeBron's better than Jordan because he speaks out on things. Well, listen, speaking out doesn't make you good. Speaking out just means you're talking. All right, what are you speaking about? That's the better question. They're telling you what you want to hear. We're on point number 3 here, in case anybody lost me. This is the exact opposite of what a leader does. A leader doesn't tell you what you want to hear. A leader tells you what you need to hear. A leader will tell you, stop whining like a bitch, shut the fuck up, do your job. A follower, like LeBron, Charlamagne, and Jamel, they are followers. They will coddle you and give you more reason to feel like a victim. Now, I want you to ask yourself, who in your life is a person who would tell you, stop whining, stop being a bitch, shut the fuck up, and do your fucking job? Who's a person in your life who would say that to you, to your face? Those are your leaders. You probably can count those people on one hand. Some of you can't count anybody. But any of you can count at least one person, that person's a leader. Now, who are the people who just tell you what you need to hear? Not what you need to hear, rather, tell you what you want to hear. Things that make you feel good, even when you on some bullshit, they just tell you something to make you feel good. Who are those people? All right, those people are followers. Even though they may have titles that make you think that they're leaders, they're not leaders. Those people I've been mentioning here today, Kaepernick, Jamel, Charlamagne, LeBron, they're not leaders. They are followers, at least when it comes to this topic. Now, whatever else they do in their lives, I don't know. But on this subject, they are followers. They have been promoted as leaders because they are known. But being known does not make you a leader. Just like being the manager at a company doesn't make you the leader of the company. It just means you're the manager. It's a huge difference between the two. Point number 4. Today's topic is we are not victims. Now, how can you never be a victim in life? Let me help you out, because I'm never going to just leave you hanging by telling you how things are fucked up, but then not telling you how to fix it. Do you notice the difference between me and what these other people do? They tell you how everything's fucked up. Charlamagne tells you that it's white supremacy and systemic oppression and what else, racism and all these other things. They tell you about all these things all the time, right? But they never have told you how to change it. Can you think about the way Charlamagne's on the radio every single day, ain't he? LeBron James is on Instagram every day, ain't he? Jamel Hill got a podcast, she on Twitter all day, every day. Can anybody point me to a series of tweets or Instagram posts or a Breakfast Club show where any of these people that I'm mentioning right now, even Mr. Colin Kaepernick, where they just said, listen, everybody, I got all y'all attention, right? Y'all all following me, right? Listen up. Here's how we, as black people in America, here's how we overcome the systemic oppression. Here's how we overcome the racism. Here's how we overcome the white supremacy, and we take care of ourselves and become powerful. Here's all we need to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the things that we need to do. Has any of them ever said that? If they have, somebody let me know. Please direct me to that information. Please send me a link. All right, don't tell me it's somewhere. No, send me the link to where it is. Because if they had, that should be the number one thing that they talk about. They should repeat it every day. You know how when you listen to this show every day, I come on and say, you're now tuned into the show where you learn to discipline to show up day after day, do the work, the confidence, put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success is yet to be achieved, and the personal initiative to go make it happen instead of waiting for it to happen. You know how I say that every day? That's what Colin Kaepernick, Jamel, Charlamagne, and LeBron should be saying every day if they have a plan for putting people in a position of power. So my question is there a plan? Does that exist? Or am I asking for something that just never existed? Some of y'all are fans of them. Y'all know who I'm talking about. You tell me. If you can find that plan, please let me know. I will amplify that plan if it exists. I don't believe it exists, because if it did, it should have reached me already. And if it did, instead of talking about all the victim stuff that they do talk about, they should be talking about that. But they talk about the victim stuff because they need something to keep talking about. See, if Charlamagne solved the problem of white supremacy and racism and systemic oppression, he might run out of content. He might not have anything to talk about on tomorrow's episode. LeBron might not have anything to post about on his next Instagram. I mean, it ain't been no basketball for a little while. He might run out of material. All right, Jamel might not have another angle for her next article. If they solve this problem, you ain't got nothing else to talk about. It's like the dog chasing the car. You ever seen a dog chasing a car? It's fun to chase the car, but what about when the dog actually catches the car? What does the dog do? It doesn't even know what to do. The whole game is to chase the car. Catching the car was never part of the plan. But when the car gets caught, now what do you do? Exactly, they don't have an answer. Point number 4. As I said, how to never be a victim. First thing you got to do is start thinking strategically, thinking and acting strategically instead of emotionally. Because emotions cloud judgment. I'm not telling you not to be emotional, because we're humans. It's impossible to not have emotions. I'm telling you to think and act off of strategy and not off of emotion. Emotion is something happens, you see a viral clip, something 15 seconds long on social media, you immediately react and paint it as, oh man, we're victims, when you don't even know the whole fucking story. LeBron James, Charlamagne, Jamel Hill. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all too. All right, it ain't just them. They just the famous ones. Some of you who are anonymous, y'all doing the same shit. Start thinking strategically instead of emotionally. Own your situation is the next thing you need to do. Even when the situation is not your fault. If you are alive to talk about it, it is your responsibility because it's affecting your life. That's what people who are in power do. Even when it's not their fault, they take responsibility. Everybody follow what I just said? Next thing you got to do, we're all still on point number 4. Stop being a bitch. I did a whole episode on this. Stop being a bitch. And when I say bitch, I talked about this episode number 86. The topic, stop whining, bitch. Go listen to that. Episode number 1387, how to not be a bitch. All right, so I already answered this question a couple times, but I'm going to have to do it again in the future. Stop being a bitch. In 2011, no, it's 2012. This is when I was making YouTube basketball videos almost predominantly. That was my internet content. And this guy by the name of Derrick Rose, basketball player, Chicago Bulls, tore his ACL. And this is when Derrick Rose was one of the most popular players out there because he had won the MVP award in 2011. And his Bulls lost to the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the next year, he was just as good. He didn't win the MVP. I think LeBron won it in 2012. But it looked like the Bulls and the Heat were about to face each other again in the Eastern Conference playoffs to see who would go to the finals. But Derrick Rose tore his ACL in the first game of the first round of the playoffs that year. So now Derrick Rose is injured. But Derrick Rose was like the most popular basketball player out there at that time. And he had even a wider base of fans than even LeBron James, simply because Derrick Rose is 6'3". He's around my height. Well, LeBron James is like 6'8", and he's like a freak of nature. Derrick Rose is a freak of nature too, but he was shorter. So people could kind of relate to Derrick Rose more than they could relate to LeBron James. So I used to have a lot of players who would reach out to me asking me, hey, how can I play more like Derrick Rose? How can I do moves like Derrick Rose? So when Derrick Rose got injured, I got a ton of email and messages from young players who were saying to me, Dre, I want to play ball and I want to be good and work on my game, but I don't want to get injured the way Derrick Rose got injured. So what do I need to do? And I would explain to them, first of all, you can't prevent being injured because an injury is an accident. It's like a car accident. Nobody gets in their car in the morning and says, hey, I hope I get in an accident today. It's something that happens. It's not something that you want to happen, but it happens. If you don't want to get injured, don't play basketball. It's just part of the game. That's the first thing I would say to them. And the second thing I would say to them is, okay, so Derrick Rose got injured playing basketball, so now you're afraid to play basketball? Now, what about the other 10 million people who play basketball today who didn't get injured? What about them? All right, you think you're going to be the one who got injured just because you saw one other guy get injured. And this is the thing that happens with us in our culture. Listen, what happened to George Floyd and what's happened to many other African Americans at the hands of a white person or a white cop, often a white cop, is unfortunate. It is terrible. Many of them should not have happened. I'm not going to say all of them because I got to get all the facts before I come out and make any definitive statements. Many of them should not have happened. However, those don't make me feel like some white cop is going to kill me. I'm not walking around afraid. I don't see a white cop and be like, hey, don't shoot me because some white cop, a different white cop in a different place happened to shoot some different person under completely different circumstances. That doesn't make me feel like I'm about to be the next victim. I don't understand how people can walk around saying, oh, well, I may be, they're thinking or they're expressing themselves in such a way that it seems like they feel like they're going to be the next victim because somebody else was a victim. What the hell does that person's outcome have to do with you? You just happen to be the same color as them, and you live in the same country with 300 million people and who knows how many police officers, how many black people. Why do you think you are randomly going to become the next one? Why? Why do you think that way? Derrick Rose got injured playing basketball. That didn't make me feel like I was going to tear my ACL playing basketball. What the hell does Derrick Rose's ACL got to do with my ACL? Obviously nothing, because I ain't never tore an ACL, knock on wood. But if I do, it ain't going to be because of Derrick Rose. It's going to be because I tore my ACL. I don't understand how something happens to one person, and even if it's a tragic thing that happens to that one person, now everyone's afraid that something's going to happen to them. I don't get it. What about the good things that happen to people? Are you afraid that's going to happen to you? What about the people that nothing happens to them? Usually that's where you're going to end up, right? Nothing happens to you. What about that? I just don't understand how people assume that what happens to one person or even several people means automatically it's going to happen to you. I don't think people actually logically believe that. Again, the reason why people want to believe that and the reason why they amplify it is because it allows them to keep feeling like victims. People like feeling like victims. They are addicted to victimhood. And there are a lot of people in the African American community, famous and not, who are addicted to being victims, Therefore, they don't want solutions to problems. Therefore, they come up with problems that are unidentifiable. They are intangible. There are no way to solve them. They just want to make noise so that they always have an excuse. They always have something to feed off of that will give them an excuse to not take full responsibility for their own lives. This show right here, for those of you who have never heard this show, if you're listening for the first time, all right, this show right here is the exact opposite of that. I'm going to give you material that allow you to take control of your own life, put yourself in a position of power, stop being a bitch, and stop allowing yourself to feel like a victim. And yes, allowing yourself to feel like a victim. If someone does something to you that is unjust and unfair, as long as you are alive to speak on it, you can do something about it. Now, if you die, okay, then you can call yourself, you could be a victim if you die, okay? Somebody does you wrong and you die, you can be a victim. Anything short of dying, you can't be a victim. If 50 Cent gets shot 9 times and he ain't a victim, all right, how are you a victim? Now, what happened to you? You got fired from Walgreens, now you're a victim? All right, come on. When do we start assuming these things? Now, we're also demonizing people because they didn't, quote, speak out, close quote, or we're demonizing cops in general. I see people protesting in LA and they're mad at the cops, or New York, they're mad at the cops. Well, listen, it was one cop in Minneapolis who did something wrong. Now, yes, have there been other cops in different cities who did wrong things at different times? Yes. But it wasn't the cop that you're yelling at. It wasn't the cop that you're throwing stuff at. It wasn't the cop that you're trying to antagonize right now. They didn't do anything. Why are you getting mad at them? That's not good strategy. That's emotion. It's not good strategy. It looks good. It feels good in the moment. It will feed your ego, but it's not good for you. So instead of metaphorically hanging our heads and saying, oh, well, something's going to happen to me now, let me feel like a victim because LeBron and Jamel and Charlamagne told me to, how about you employ some strategy and ask yourself a better question? Here's the better question, and we're going to close it on this. What can I do to help the greater good to ensure that this happens to fewer people and make sure it doesn't happen to me? Let me repeat that question. Actually, let me recap and I'll repeat it at the end. The topic here today, once again, is we are not victims. Point number 1, power does not accrue to a victim. Power is defined as the ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or quality. Definition of a victim is a person harmed or injured or killed as a result of a crime, accident, or other event or action. Everything in your life is a result of something you don't control, you don't have power, therefore you are a victim. Are you a victim or are you a powerful person? Pick one. Point number 2. Our leaders in Black America, they are not leaders for one reason. They cannot have become successful by being victims, yet they preach victimhood. And that's why they're not leaders, because they are not preaching what they practice. Now, some people don't practice what they preach. These people are not preaching what they practice, which is completely backwards. It completely baffled me for a very long time until I finally figured it out. Point number 3, they're telling you what you want to hear. The same way Donald Trump says things with racist undertones because he's trying to appeal to some people who are racist in his base. Not everybody in his base is racist. Some people who vote for Trump are racist. So Donald Trump says things that appeals to those people because he's selling to his buyers. I told you about that a long time ago. LeBron James talks about victimhood, even though he is not a victim, because he's selling to his buyers. He got a whole audience of people who want to be victims. This is why they do it. Point number 4, how to never be a victim. Start thinking strategically instead of emotionally. Emotions cloud judgment. Own your situation, even when it's not your fault. Stop being a bitch. Just because something happened to somebody else, don't be afraid of it happening to you, unless you can logically draw a line between their outcome and your outcome, which you normally cannot. Don't demonize people because they don't have your opinion or because they won't speak out on a certain topic the way that you want to speak out on it. What the fuck does their opinion have to do with your opinion? And don't be mad at police officers because the random police officer in your town didn't do a damn thing to you or anybody else that they weren't supposed to do. So don't be mad at them because, again, that is misplaced energy. It's emotional. It looks good. It feels good. It plays well on social media, but it will not be good for you in the long run. The strategy that you need to employ, I'm going to say it one more time to wrap up this show. What can I do to help the greater good to ensure that this happens to fewer people, or that I empower myself to stop being a bitch, stop feeling like a victim, and stop letting my life be an example to other people to also be victims? Work on your game. Dre all day.